Hello, what it is and what's going on, and welcome to episode 1 of the Sports Talk Eli podcast. Great to have you guys with me today for the inaugural episode of, gotta slow down a little bit, the Sports Talk Eli podcast. My name is Elijah Hamilton. I'm recording this on Tuesday, December 29th. This is the last week of 2020. This year's been rough on a lot of people, man. It's been rough in the sports world. It's been rough in every category. But I'm just glad that we've made it through. I'm glad that 2021 is on the horizon. And it's great. I hope you all had a very, very good holiday. If you're celebrating Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, I hope that you enjoyed it to the fullest. We have a very fun show for you guys today. We are going to talk about the Golden State Warriors and their troubles early on in the season. We're going to talk about the Brooklyn Nets and their dominance early on in the season. I want to talk about Dwayne Haskins and how he flamed out. And I'm going to talk about the NFL playoffs. So if you're watching this on YouTube or you're streaming this on the many podcast apps that I plan on throwing this on, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I got a phone vibrate. Good Lord. So, we'll start off today's show with this. I am very concerned about the Golden State Warriors. Am I the only person who's concerned about the Golden State Warriors? Because I can't be the only person in the sports media world who's worried about this team. They went from being a titan, a juggernaut, now to looking like just one of the teams in the league that's in the middle of the pack. Now, coming into the season, many people thought that the Warriors were going to be not a title contender, but a playoff team. And I thought that too. But their first 3 games, they haven't looked like that. So they get blown out by the Brooklyn Nets and Kevin Durant in Game 1. They get blown out by the Milwaukee Bucks in Game 2. And I know what you're saying. Hey, those are 2 of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. That might be fighting for the first seed in the Eastern Conference all season. That's not so bad, but it's one thing to lose, and then it's another thing to get blown out by both of those teams. Then they play the Chicago Bulls, who've looked terrible so far. And I know we're just 3 games in, but they haven't played their best basketball in those 3 games. They beat them by a buzzer beater, barely beating them. So the Golden State Warriors, to me, do not look so good. And I feel like we need to dissect why the Warriors haven't looked as good as we thought they were. And this problem comes from the Warriors players, Kelly Oubre Jr. and Andrew Wiggins. Now, they traded for both Wiggins and Oubre Jr. in order to, 1, stay competitive in the Western Conference. 2, fill the void of not having Klay Thompson. But you know they lost Klay due to injury. Klay is not going to be able to play this year. So, Wiggins and Oubre Jr. have to step up if the Warriors want any hope of sniffing the playoffs this year. And I think they can. Last season, Oubre Jr. averaged 17 points per game for the Phoenix Suns. And Wiggins, the first overall pick, and though he's never lived up to that bill of being a first overall pick, the kid can still ball. Like, I think he had a season in Minnesota where he averaged 22 points per game. So there's talent there. They have to be more efficient, and they have to space out the floor better in order for us to truly unlock Stephen Curry's game. Because Steph games feeds off of floor spacing, and that's what Klay Thompson was so good at. Having games where you're going 1 to 10 from the field, 3 to 16 from the field, ain't going to cut it in this Warriors offense. Another thing is they need Draymond Green back. Draymond Green isn't going to heal some of the offensive woes this team has showed, but his defense and his secondary ball handling would be much needed. Much needed. I want to shout out James Wiseman, because Wiseman so far has looked really good. He has that. He can be a defensive anchor, sort of similar to your Anthony Davis, and he can be a floor spacer similar to Chris Bosh in Miami. And if you're a big man doing that stuff, then that's a really good company. That's really good company to be in. But yeah, as I was saying, if the Warriors want to have any hope of making the playoffs, Oubre and Wiggins got to step it up. And that's just it. They got to play better moving forward. And having close games against the Chicago Bulls and getting blown out by two of the best teams in the Eastern Conference ain't going to get you there. It ain't going to get you there. All right, so let's switch gears. Last night, the Brooklyn Nets took on the Memphis Grizzlies in what was a close game. A very, very close game. And I'm going to talk about the Grizzlies a little bit because they lost their point guard, John Morant, due to an ankle injury. We're supposed to be getting back their MRI today. Hopefully, it's nothing too serious, too serious, that he misses out the season, because that would suck for the Grizzlies not having a full season of Triple J and John Morant together, which was a very fun duo to watch last year. I enjoyed John Morant's rookie season so much. But the Brooklyn Nets were able to keep a close game with them. Not even though they didn't have Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, who were sitting on the bench resting in street clothes. So the Nets, to me, are my favorite to come out of the Eastern Conference. And I think they are going to go to the finals. And here's my reason why. They have excellent bench depth. Like, this team is so deep. You have a guy like Dinwiddie, who I know is out for the season. But you have Dinwiddie, you have LeVert, you have Joe Harris, you have Jared Allen, who were starters on that team with the when they had DeAndre Russell. And they are some really, really good players. And LeVert showed last night that he can hoop, putting up 28 points and making some big-time shots against the Memphis Grizzlies. Ooh. 2, Durant looks like he's back to form. Like, I know it didn't take that long. I didn't think he was going to start slow this season to get back to being Kevin Durant, but he's looked like he's back to being Kevin Durant. If he's doing that, putting up buckets and proving why he is the second best player in the league, right behind one LeBron James, then oh Lord. They also running that really, really, really high tempo 7 seconds or less offense, or something similar to it, having Nash and D'Antoni on their bench. That offense is going to be really, really good. And I know for a fact that Irvin and KD, both players who are going to thrive in that offense. And, like I said, they have the young talent and they're well coached. So that, to me, are the reasons why I feel the Nets are going to come. Now we're going to go switch gears from the NBA to the NFL. The NFL is in week 17. We're going to talk about the NFL playoffs, and we are going to talk about some other stories in the NFL. One of the main stories that I want to talk about is the Washington football team, formerly known as the Washington Redskins. We all know why they had to change their name, but that's not why we're talking about them today. We are talking about dumb-cutting quarterback Dwayne Haskins, and this doesn't come to a surprise. Haskins' actions on the field and off the field is what led to the guy's downfall. His inability to throw the ball down the field, his inaccuracy, his touchdown to interception ratio, which was very, very, very poor, along with his leadership, decision making off the field, is just poor. So we're looking at a guy who went out to a strip club in the middle of a pandemic after you lost a game. You look at a guy who couldn't make, I think at the end of the game, he fell to do, because they just wanted him to do, you just wanted him to do the QB kneel, and he just couldn't kneel because of the fact that he's on the sideline taking selfie with fans. It seemed like he cared a little bit more about just being a celebrity instead of being an NFL quarterback. And I hate to see young athletes throw away a chance that many of us dream. I would love Like, if I wanted to be an NFL or NBA athlete, I would do everything it takes not to mess that opportunity up. I'm coming on time. I'm going over the playbook. I'm being respectful for the coaches and the owners and my OGs in the locker room. I'm doing all that. And it seemed like Haskins just didn't have the maturity level to do all that stuff. And it's a shame. It's a it's a real shame. I want to also dissect what Booger McFarland said on ESPN the other day, because he pointed out how African Americans is like, we don't treat it like a business. He said how we don't treat, like, the NFL is a business. It's not a game. It's a business. And how many come to the league and don't take it seriously. One, Booger McFarland, and some of this I agree with you, but just tying it to African American athletes, it's kind of crazy. When you've seen guys like Ryan Leaf and Johnny Manziel come into the NFL at quarterback, mind you. Ryan Leaf is a guy in the Peyton Manning draft who many people felt that was better than Peyton, but who had the better career. And you know why Peyton had a better career? If you are saying Peyton, because obviously I'm assuming that you're saying Peyton, because Peyton took the game seriously. Ryan Leaf and Johnny Manziel did not take the game seriously. They squandered their opportunity. And I'm not putting Dwayne Haskins in that category just as yet, because I believe in second chances. I believe that he can probably go end up in a Green Bay, Pittsburgh, New Orleans, Kansas City, Indianapolis, any of these teams that have a veteran quarterback. And just like that, he'll turn his career around. Like, all it takes is a little bit of maturing. And maybe he's just a guy who just needed to be slapped on his wrist in order for him to realize that, okay, gotta take this a little bit more seriously. So, I hope Haskins ends up back on his feet on another team. I'm intrigued to see if he gets signed, picked up. I know he's on the waiver wire. No one's going to claim him because it's week 17. But I hope he's working in the offseason. I hope he's not going out partying and posting him partying on social media. I hope this kid is working from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. Just flat out, I'm trying to get back in the league. And I hope he has that mentality moving forward. So in other news, it's week 17 of the NFL season. And week 17 is always fun to me because you have those like crazy upset games. It determines who out of the final teams that's still standing gets the chance to play in the playoffs. It's a lot of fun. And this year we have a lot of different suitors in both the AFC and the NFC. I wrote everything in a notebook, so I'm just trying to find it in a notebook. So we'll start off in the AFC. The AFC, by the way, it's really, 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 really deep. It's so deep that Kansas City, Buffalo, and Pittsburgh might be title contenders. But then you got the Titans who messed around and went to the AFC Championship game last year and might do it again. I know they've regressed from last year to this year, but I wouldn't rule it out. I really wouldn't rule that out. But you also have the Colts. You have the Ravens, who they get in. They can mess some things up as well. And you got the Browns. And the Browns have been playing some really good, resilient football over the last year. I know they lost to the Jets last week, but they've been playing really good football. And then you have the Dolphins. And then the Colts. So the Titans and the Colts are both fighting to see who wins the AFC South. Titans play the Texans. Colts play the Jaguars. I'm not going to lie. I would lean on the Colts winning the division simply because of the fact that the Colts play the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Jaguars are bad. They're not going to try to win that game. I know they have Trevor Lawrence locked up, but why keep winning another meaningless football game? You secure that number 1 overall pick. Secure it. Now, the Texans and the Titans, that's going to be an interesting game because the Texans have a strong chance to play spoiler, and I wouldn't rule out the possibility of Deshaun Watson playing mad and having a really great game and actually winning that game, giving the Colts the number 1 spot in the AFC South. But it should be very interesting to see. The Browns play the Steelers. They play the Steelers. Now the Steelers will not be playing quarterback Ben Roethlisberger. They want to sit him so he can be fresh in the playoffs, which makes sense. But in comes starter Mason Rudolph. Now Mason Rudolph and the Cleveland Browns, we know the history behind Mason Rudolph and the Browns. We had the Mouth Scared helmet incident. So it's gonna be some bad blood from that. So it's gonna be interesting to see. The Browns lost to the Steelers early on in the season, so they're gonna want to avenge that loss. And what better way to do it in a game where it seals their fate as a 2020 playoff team? The Ravens play the Bengals. Now the Bengals are playing. I know they've won their last couple of games, so there's a strong chance that the Bengals might try to upset the Ravens. And the Ravens are honestly, there's kind of my sneaky favorite to go to the Super Bowl because that run game is so good, and they don't have anybody in the AFC who can stop it. Then we might see them as the favorites to come out of the AFC. I know they've regressed this year. I know they've dealt with COVID. They dealt with a lot this year. But it still would be fun to see them in the playoffs because it can mess some things up as well. Then we have the Dolphins. Now the Miami Dolphins to me are very, 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 very interesting as well. Last year they were 5-11. This year they might finish the season 9-7. They might finish the season 10-6. No, they're gonna finish the season 10-6, not 9-7. Listen, this team, in my opinion, even if they don't make the playoffs, going from what they were from year 1 of the rebuild to year 2, then getting to a Tagovailoa asserted in his offense, along with that really, really good defense, they're moving in the right directions. Even if they don't make the playoffs, they're still moving in the right direction, and that's something to be happy about. Brian Flores, to me, is a head coach of the year candidate, in my opinion, and I think he should win it. I really, really think he should win it based on the improvement that Miami Dolphins have shown. They're getting a top 5 pick this year from the Landry Tunsil trade. Larmy Tunsil, not Landry Tunsil. They potentially drafting the wide receiver, along with getting pieces back like Devontae Parker and Mike Gesicki. They're definitely moving in the right direction, and they're gonna be a fun team to watch moving forward. They play the Buffalo Bills. The Bills, I haven't heard anything about them sitting Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and the rest of those guys down for this game. But if they play a Bills team that are playing their starters, then it's gonna be a rough game to win for the Miami Dolphins. It's gonna be a really, really, really rough game for them to win. So it should be fun to see if the Dolphins prevail, beat the Buffalo Bills, and clinch their spot into the NFL playoffs. All right, so now we want to head over to the NFC. So far, we know the Packers, Saints, Seahawks, and Buccaneers are all locks for the playoffs, with the Rams, Bears, Cardinals, and NFC East. We're gonna talk about that in a minute. That's on the side, but the NFC East that's a whole mess of its own. So, the Rams play the Cardinals. The Bears play the Packers. And I have to say, it's very I'm intrigued to see who comes out the victor between the Rams and the Cardinals. The Cardinals have been fun to watch. I know that they've been up and down this year, but it'll be very, very fun to see if Kyler Murray can get them into the playoffs. It'll be fun to see Larry Fitzgerald play another significant playoff game. I know he is more close to retirement than he is actually continuing to keep his career going, so it'd be fun to see him get in as well. The Bears are playing some really, really, really solid football after benching Mitch Trubisky. The defense definitely has regressed and not the same defense as they were 2 years ago when they first made the playoffs. They play against the Green Bay Packers. Now, once again, the Packers is the same thing with the who I mentioned earlier with the Bills. There's a strong chance that they might be sitting their starters down. Which, if they are, then I expect the Bears to go out there beat your rivals in the Green Bay Packers, clinch your spot into the playoffs. But if Rodgers and those guys are playing, then I don't see the Bears getting in. Which, the Bears to me are an interesting team. If they don't get into the playoffs this year, or if they do and they lose in the first round, what comes out of Nagy? And what do you do about Mitch Trubisky? Do you go quarterback again in this year's draft, and then you fire Nagy and go in another direction? Which a lot of people feel they probably should go in another direction, which I also feel, because I've seen some Mitch Trubisky games where I'm just watching him and I'm just like, dude, what are you doing? Who are you throwing to? Who are you throwing to? And he's had moments where he's looked really good, and he has moments where he looks just so aggravating, and it's just like, sorry, I just hit the microphone. But yeah, I'm really that's my concerns with the Bears. If Rodgers is playing, then the Bears don't get in. The Rams and the Cardinals game is very, very interesting to me because of the fact that determines a lot. That determines both teams are like on that cusp of making the playoffs. If the Cardinals win, which I hope they do, then they get in. I know the Rams will not have Jared Goff playing this week because of a dumb injury, I believe it is. So, should be interesting to see who's the victor between those two teams. Now, the NFC East. This one's very exciting. You have Cowboys playing the Giants. The Giants with a chance to get into the playoffs with a 6-10 record if they beat the Cowboys. The Cowboys, who've won their last couple of games, who knocked Philadelphia out. So now they're eliminated. And the Washington football team with a chance to make the playoffs with a 7-9 record if they beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, these three teams with a potential chance of making the playoffs, mind you, all under 500. If the Cowboys beat the Giants, or Giants beat the Cowboys, then they get in. Washington has to lose to the Eagles, I should say, in order for those two teams to get in. If Washington just straight out beat the Eagles, then they get in the playoffs. So, honestly, this is hard to determine who gets in. I want to say that the Washington football team gets in, but I'm concerned about who are they playing at quarterback against the Eagles. If they are playing, I know they cut Dwayne Haskins. I know we mentioned that from the earlier segment. But who are they playing at quarterback determines if they get in playoffs. I know they won't have Alex Smith, so we got to see. Ultimately, if I had my money on any team, I would say the Cowboys. The Cowboys are playing really good football. Andy Dalton has turned it on the last couple of games. They've the defensive woes aren't looking as bad as it was earlier in the season, and they have already beaten the Giants this year. So, like I said, if any team that I feel can get in and win the NFC East and get into the playoffs has to be the Dallas Cowboys. All right, so I want to thank you all for listening. This has been Elijah Hamilton, and thank you for tuning in to Sports Talk Eli. I hope I didn't butcher anything that I said today. You folks have a nice day.